Shabbat Shalom. Thank you all so much for being here. It is such a joy to get to celebrate Shabbat together. For the past couple of years, teaching 5th grade in the religious school has been my sweet spot. I think 10 is the perfect age. They're just starting to see themselves as individuals. Still very much in that phase of very concrete thinking, but beginning to be able to think more abstractly, beginning to be able to analyze and understand the world around them in a new way. And because they're 10 and not teenagers, they don't feel the need to look constantly bored and disconnected. They will squeal with delight if you share a cool story. They'll giggle, they'll laugh, they'll sit up in their chairs. It's very rewarding, the teaching experience. So I love teaching 5th grade. And this year, my 5th grade class has given me a run for my money. Renowned child psychologist Foster Cline says, any kid worth their salt will test your boundaries. Let's just say this class is worth a lot of salt. Teaching them feels kind of like a verbal whack-a-mole kind of a game. Can you please put your desk flat on the ground? Okay, can you pick up your desk and then put it flat on the ground? I'll take that marker. We're not going to draw on the board right now. Thank you so much. Can you stop throwing that? Can you stop pushing her? Can you stop poking? Okay, let's raise our... Thank you so much. It's a lot. And there have been days where I just don't know exactly what to do. There was one day this past fall that I sent 3 kids out of the class to go take a walk and come back and be ready to be in class. And I know that's not a good thing to do, but I really had no idea what else to do. We all needed to get through those 2 hours. When our new religious school director, Ilana Snaps-Taylor, came back from maternity leave, she sent me the kindest email. Hi, Eliza. I noticed you sent 3 kids to the office on Thursday. Wondering if we could meet. I'd love to hear about your experience teaching this year, and I think I have a couple of ideas that might help you. I kind of felt like I was being summoned to the principal's office. So we met, and I was prepared, and I told her about teaching and how challenging it is, and I brought examples of all the behaviors I was seeing, and I told her it's like 60 to 70% behavior management and 30 to 40% desperately trying to convey content. And she listened so kindly and so compassionately as I told her all of my woes. And then she said, would you like some feedback? Okay. She said, I think your behavior management style means that the kids that have the most negative behaviors get the most attention. And so the more that you acknowledge all these negative behaviors you don't want to see, the more they want to do them because they want, kids just want attention. So she said, you got to change up your game. And I'm thinking, and then what? She says, you got to change the game. It's got to be a more positive environment. So what I want you to do is go into class and tell them you want to throw a party. And I'm thinking, that is the last thing I want to do. She's like, throw a party. We're going to all work together in order to be able to throw that party. And then your job as a teacher is not to notice anything except good behavior. You're going to notice when kids raise their hand, you're going to notice when they sit quietly, and you're going to have to start really small. But every time they do that, you're going to put a marble in the jar, and gradually over the course of the semester, they'll work together to earn this party. I'm sitting there thinking there is no way this is ever going to work. But I was also remembering my own experiences and knowing nothing I tried was working either. So I decided to try it and then went to class, which immediately reverted back to every pattern it had been for the entire year. And then as paper airplanes were flying and watches are beeping and I was asking people to bring up their watches, I remembered Alana's Torah and decided maybe I should change my game. So I turned around to the board. I did not have my marbles together or my jar. Turned around to the board and I just started writing kids' names on the board and I didn't say anything. And all of a sudden the class went silent. And I hear the kids saying, "What is she doing? Why is Rabbi Eliezer writing our names on the board? Guys, this is really a big trouble. This is 3 strikes and you're out. She's going to write our names on the board so we can do 3 strikes and you're out. I didn't say anything. I just kept writing names on the board slowly, one at a time. By the time I finished, I turned around and I said, guys, I'm really hoping we can work for a party together. But the only way we can do that is if we work together as a class. And so together, we started to think about how we might do that and what kinds of actions in our class could gain points. The most disruptive child in the class raised their hand. I've never seen that before. Raised their hand, and I put a star by their name, called on them, thanked them for raising their hand, and they had so many ideas. And we spent like 10 minutes figuring out what the party would look like and what kind of behaviors. And from then on, class was a totally different experience. They all sat in their chairs. The desks stayed flat on the ground. They raised their hands. They contributed thoughtfully, and they listened. It was amazing. And teachers walked by and said, what happened? I told them it was all Ilana. But her Torah was sheer genius. Focus on the light. Focus on what's good. Focus on what's right. And that grows. And the things you don't want kind of fade into the background. Of course, that's the whole wisdom of Hanukkah. Generations ago, when we think about our ancestors and the aftermath of war and the aftermath of an impossible win, they'd been so disconnected from Jewish practice, so disconnected from public connection with ritual. They'd been deprived of a spiritual life, and they come back to their temple and find it to be ransacked. And the one beacon of light, the menorah, which was such an important part of their temple practice, was stolen. And at the time, it would have been totally reasonable, totally appropriate for them to bury the dead, grieve their losses, work on building community practice, teach everybody the prayers, get everybody back into the spirit, get a menorah that was worthy to celebrate and get enough oil, and then to rededicate the temple. But our ancestors knew that the more you focus on the darkness, the more darkness grows. And so they made a radical choice to focus on the light. They took scrap metal and made a menorah that would work enough. And they took that one cruet of oil that should have only lasted for one day, but we all know the story, right? That one cruet of oil, somehow magically, when they focused on it, when they invested in that light, it expanded and grew to fill 8 days. Now, you might say that's magical thinking. Those are the rabbis in the Talmud reinventing history, so you're not focusing on war, you're focusing on miracles. But there's ancient wisdom there that we are commanded to refocus on each and every year. Today, when we light our Chanukiot, there's a halakha, you can't use those candles for anything. You can't use them to read, you can't use them to light your way. If the power goes out, sorry, they cannot be useful. The one thing you can use them for is to appreciate light. For an hour every night, you sit there and you look at the light and you focus on the light. And somehow when you focus on the light, the darkness recedes into the background. That's something we do on Hanukkah in the darkest time of the year, but that's also really important Torah for our lives each and every day. I was at the Yesod Shabbat dinner a couple of weeks ago, and there's a new young man who came, and he's a fascinating guy. He was telling me about his life and about his work, and he has this job I'd never heard of before. He's a Scrum Master. I know, right? That's the coolest title ever. I want to call myself a Scrum Master. He's a Scrum Master. And what that means is he, as he explained it to me, runs a team, and his job is to organize their time in such a way that they always feel positively about their work, and the client always feels positively about their work. And he says to me, being positive takes a lot of work. You can't just say, I want to create a positive work environment. You can't just say, I want people to feel happy when they come to work. It means that when you're really stressed and you're up against a hard deadline, you have to make the active choice to engage with your colleagues with joy, to act as though you have all the time that you need to trust your team. It takes real commitment and real work, and not everyone is caught up for that job. He tells me that it's not just a nice thing to do, but actually when you create a positive work environment, employees are not only happier, they do more and better work, and there's much less turnover. So much so that his employer is willing to invest a large majority of his time in being a team motivator for his group. I couldn't stop thinking about this, thinking about what would it mean if we could channel Hanukkah, if we could channel the light in this darkness into becoming our own Scrum Masters. There's so many moments every day where we unthinkingly let the darkness overcome the light. One that always happens to me is I'll be driving somewhere, racing to go, and there's traffic, and there's nothing that takes away the light of day than traffic. And I want to think, what would happen if we became Scrum Masters in those moments? What would happen if we shifted our focus and tried to light a Hanukkah light? Maybe in that traffic zone, instead of thinking, stuck in traffic again, I'm going to be late, we might choose to shift our thoughts to, I get some extra time to think before I get to work. Maybe in those moments when we start to have negative thoughts about ourselves, our abilities, our appearance, whatever it is, we do the active work of shifting our focus to what we appreciate about ourselves, to the qualities that we have that we admire in ourselves. Refocusing. It's not a gratitude practice. It's a focusing on what is good, on what we like. With people in our families, in our lives, in relationships, it means choosing to focus on what they do right, on when they rise to the occasion, on when they are who we want them to be, and letting the rest go. It's not worth it. And the hardest, I think, is the world, right? Reading the paper, reading about all of the darkness that exists, and then choosing elements of life in every single story, elements of light that we can pull out and we can hold on to, and that we can trust that we're going to do the work to repair the world, but there's also a certain amount of work that needs to be done focusing on the light. Foster Cline, that psychologist I was telling you about, he has a great story he likes to tell. He was once in a grocery store, and he saw this mother at the front of the store with a toddler. And her toddler was lying face down on the ground, beating their hands and their feet on the floor and screaming and crying. It was a full-down meltdown. And he's watching this mom, and she was so calm. And her child is screaming and wailing and carrying on. And the mom says calmly, "Kayla, you're doing a really great job. We're almost done. 2 more aisles, just 2 more aisles, and then we're going to get to go home, and we'll do bath time and dinner and bed. You're doing such a great job." She calmly picked the child up, put the child in the basket. The child is screaming and wailing and crying, and she starts walking down the aisles. And Foster Cline is like, "This is better than anything I've seen." So he starts following her. And the child is leaning over and scraping things off of the shelves and crying and doing horrible meltdown. And the mom just keeps going, "Kayla, you're doing such a great job. We're almost there. 1 more aisle. We just have 3 more things on our list, and then we're going to check out, and then we're going to go home." And he's following around the store thinking this woman is a saint. And he follows her all the way up to the cash register, and she's standing in line. The kid is still screaming. And she's saying, "We're almost there. We're just going to check out, and then we're going to go home. You're doing such a great job." Foster Cline taps her on the shoulder and says, "Ma'am, I can't help but telling you, I've been watching you throughout this whole store. You're doing an amazing job." And she looked at him and she said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, I've been watching you. You've been talking so kindly to your child. And she's looking at him, and he says, you just keep saying, Kayla, you're doing such a wonderful job. You're so kind. You're so good. And the mom says, my name is Kayla. So for this Hanukkah, we're Kayla. We're focusing on the light. We're making parties. We're focusing on what's good, on what we hope will be until it is. Shabbat Shalom. Please rise, page 184.